Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your back porch professor. I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend, and I have some news that'll make it even better. While everyone's obsessing over the southern border, President Trump has actually been waging a completely different war on the northern border. And what he just accomplished in the last 7 months has liberal Canadian officials in Ottawa absolutely scrambling in ways you've never seen before. Now, of course, the legacy media won't tell you this story. They can't, because it completely destroys their narrative about Trump being unhinged and chaotic and the like. I would argue that what you're about to discover here is one of the most sophisticated international pressure campaigns in modern diplomatic history. And the results are absolutely staggering. So here's what's been happening while you weren't watching, as it were. Trump, of course, just increased tariffs on Canada from 25% to 35%. That's the highest trade penalty ever imposed on our northern neighbor there. But here's the kicker. This isn't ultimately about trade. It's about total border transformation, and it's working like we never even imagined. The numbers are mind-blowing. In just 7 months, Trump has forced Canada to deploy 10,000 frontline personnel along the U.S. border, along with new helicopters, drones, and other advanced surveillance technology to enhance security and combat illegal cross-border activities like drug and human trafficking. So we're talking Black Hawk helicopters, military drones, 24/7 monitoring towers, X-ray scanners, chemical analyzers. They're calling it border security, but this is military-grade surveillance technology, creating what is, in effect, a massive militarized wall at our northern border. All told, Canada right now is spending an unprecedented $1.3 billion on border security. That's more border security than Canada has ever spent or deployed in its history. Now, why? Well, there were a number of reasons. First and foremost, until Trump came to office, the 4,000-mile wide border between Canada and the United States was the longest undefended border in the world. And it was effectively exploited by both drug cartels and human trafficking rings. Here's the part that should shock you. A lot of people don't realize this, but Mexican cartels are now operating fentanyl synthesis labs in Canada. And that's because cartels moved operations north to avoid the southern border enforcement during Trump's first administration. So fentanyl has been coming to the United States, not just via the southern border, but via the northern border as well. And so that's why Trump has been pressuring Mark Carney and Trudeau before him to commit to such an unprecedented militarized presence at the northern border. But unfortunately, the northern border isn't just about drugs. It's about human trafficking as well, often on a massive scale. Border Patrol data shows that recent encounters on the northern border found that over 70% of migrants crossing the northern border illegally had previous criminal records. And of course, the remaining 30% are in the United States illegally to begin with. Migrants from around the world come into Canada because of the lax immigration laws, and then they try to cross over illegally into the United States, exploiting both the lax laws and the undefended border. Along similar lines, there's been a significant visa fraud crackdown. So Canada's border enforcement is including a 600% increase in visa investigations and tightened processing measures so as to prevent migrants from overextending their stays here in the United States. So what this means is that the visa fraud pipeline that allowed questionable individuals to enter Canada and then slip across the United States, it's just been completely dismantled. As always with President Trump, the results speak for themselves. We have seen nothing less than a 90% reduction in illegal southbound movement, along with an 80% reduction in irregular asylum claims. Trump didn't just secure the border. He eliminated entire smuggling networks that had operated for literally decades. But the piece de resistance is how Trump is using tariffs as leverage in all of this. A lot of people don't see how tariffs fit in and relate to all of this. What we have to remember is that President Trump has repeatedly pointed out that not only have Canadian officials refused to take the necessary measures to close the border on their side of the northern border, But they continue to take advantage of the United States to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars a year. So Canada continues to underfund its military, and Canadian military budget's only half of what it ought to be. And that's because they take advantage of their proximity here to the United States and our military. They sell cheap Chinese steel as their own. It's a total counterfeit. Canada imposes all kinds of regulatory obstacles, impeding free and fair trade. Again, all of this is fine. Canada should benefit Canadians for sure, but Trump isn't playing that asymmetrical game anymore. So tariffs are now officially a very effective form of political leverage. In February, he slapped Canada with a 25% tariff, except on energy, which is staying at 10%. And that, of course, is a favor to Alberta, which is voting on independence from Ottawa just months from now. Trump then escalated that to a 35% tariff when Canada didn't fully comply with his demands. But here's the key. The tariffs were first implemented as part of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. That's the act that Trump used to declare a national emergency over fentanyl trafficking and border security. So that gave him broad powers to circumvent normal trade agreements. And that way, with the tariffs, Trump is forcing Canadian compliance on three key issues: border security and fentanyl, which they've already largely complied with; trade balance corrections, where Trump is trying to basically eliminate the trade deficit with Canada; and broader strategic subordination, where he wants Canada to step up in their military spending and share in the national security network in the Arctic to counter Russia and China. And on top of all that, Trump is using Alberta's threat to secede from Ottawa as his ultimate stick by threatening to support Alberta's separation. Trump is forcing a full court press to get Ottawa to comply with his demands. And frankly, Carney's responses of late show that Trump's leverage strategy is having its intended effect. Just days back, Canada dropped most retaliatory tariffs on the USMCA compliant goods, essentially surrendering its main retaliatory tool. They rescinded their digital services tax that had angered US tech companies. And they appear to have largely stopped escalating counter-terrorists despite Trump's increases. Canadian officials appear to be learning the hard way: you don't out-negotiate the Donald. He is, after all, the master of the art of the deal. And as a result, the northern border isn't just secure, it's been completely revolutionized. And Canada paid for every penny of it. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and headlines and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else. Love you guys. Enjoy your weekend. God bless.